Hello, this is ASEAN Movie Pulse Talks. I am Panos Kotzathanasis, and today I'm here with Marko Stojiljković, Grace Han, and Rhythm Zaveri. We are going to talk about Decision to Live, a film that is already on the top of our best Asian films of 2022 list and the best Korean films of the year list. So, okay, and I guess probably most definitely one of the best films of the previous year, I guess. Rhythm, will you tell us a bit what the film is about?
Sure thing. So the central character of Detective Hae-jun, he's a police detective in Busan. He is an insomniac, can't really sleep at night, has troubles being a bit social that way. But him and his partner are assigned a new case where a mountaineer has fallen from a peak and died. And his prime suspect happens to be the mountaineer's wife, a Chinese origin woman named Song Sore, who has come into China and married this guy. And as he's investigating the case deeper and deeper, he starts to develop feelings for this woman who is a bit of an enigma for him, a woman who can't really speak Korean. Her Korean is insufficient, as she says. And that's where the story pretty much goes after that.
Okay, let's start like very generic. Let's say, Marko, what did you like about the film the most?
It's so much more than the sum of its components, and its components are pretty much perfect for themselves. But actually, the thing I found most interesting is a parallel I drove to film from, well, not so distant age, but from completely different context. It is Argentine film, The Secret in Their Eyes. It's about the same amount of like melodrama, like romance packaged into a thriller. The Secret in Their Eyes was a political thriller. This one is more like neo-noir murder, like crime thriller. And I really, I think Park even references it a bit like deliberately with the one subplot or like one part of the plot in which the suspect slash love interest kind of quotes the protagonist's like sidekick from The Secret in Their Eyes, with like in the mechanics of solving the crime. It's like the passion is the passion. It's like you know, and
yeah.
she cracks the case open with that suggestion. I mean, like it's all around, it's all around brilliant film. It's beautifully shot, it's masterfully edited, it's cleverly directed, and it's monumental. It's probably the best film of the year.
Grace?
Yeah, so I watched Decision to Leave twice. The first time I watched it was in Korea, in Seoul, and then the second time I watched it at Toronto. And I think both times, just this idea, this enthrallment with cinema. I don't know, I feel like I personally am a sucker for movies that are all about desire and longing in general, but I think this particular film, it wasn't just full of desire, it was full of enthrallment of being cast under like a sort of spell, whether that is a romantic one or I guess through the cinematography, through the power of the camera, right? And like thinking about, and this rear window like sense of all the camera like zoom ins, and all of like the sudden swish pans, and like this sort of feeling of wanting more, but being caught up in the moment, I think it's something that I haven't felt so much recently. Whenever I watch a movie, I sit back and I watch and I'm like, oh, that's entertaining. But decision to leave, for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I had, and this might sound a little weird, but I felt like I had this sort of chemistry with what was happening on screen. And I think that's probably the biggest pull for me.
Really?
Yeah, I went into this one just expecting a really good murder mystery, which to be fair, it is. But when you start watching the film and as the story unfolds, it's just the mystery is just wrapping around what its core is, which is this beautiful love story. And I was not prepared for that. And when that revealed itself that it's doing this beautiful love story within this mystery, I was very impressed with that direction that Park took. And also it still keeps the mystery alive for the most part, doesn't necessarily want to be a wholly new or a revelatory mystery, but it does what it does exceptionally well. And as both Marco and Grace said, the technical merits are just magnificent on this one. I cannot fault any of them, especially the editing, which Marco mentioned, and also the cinematography, which is just to die for. And then obviously you get to the two actors as well, which the chemistry between them was just such a joy to watch as an audience. Whether you like them or not, they're both fantastic actors, don't get me wrong, but even if you're watching them for the first time, which a few people who I recommended the film to were watching it for the first time, they saw both of them for the first time and they were like, that is some of the best acting we've seen all year. So that's also something that absolutely factors into it. And just the whole treatment that Park Chan-wook gives it, we expect a certain kind of film from the guy. And while this is sort of that, it's not really that. That's what was quite refreshing to see.
Yeah, and I think now that you mentioned about Park, I think one of the biggest, okay, I don't know if it's exactly a trait, but the fact that he manages to turn up masterpiece after masterpiece is a feat on itself, right? You expect
Absolutely.
him to present a masterpiece, and he does, which is not exactly common thing to happen, to meet this kind of expectation, but he does, all right?
Absolutely. His film before this, The Handmaiden, was my favorite film of his so far. But as we spoke about this when we talked about JSA on our channel as well, that you can pretty much pick any of his films and you could have it as a number one, and people will be like, okay, that is fair. But this guy, even like with Decision to Leave, when it was first announced, people were saying that, oh, it's the first melodrama that Park Chan-wook is doing. And there was a little bit of, okay, what's going to happen here? Is he going to be able to pull this off? The guy who made the Vengeance trilogy and The Handmaiden, is he going to be able to pull off a melodrama? But you have to know this is Park Chan-wook, and he just took it into a complete different level and just made this beautiful masterpiece, as you said. And it's very hard to do. I have often wondered myself as to between Park Chan-wook and Bong Joon-ho as to who's the director that I prefer more.
This is going to be the last question. Leave it. This is going to be
all right.
We're gonna finish with that.
Let's do that later. Yeah.
And also for me, it's impressive. Like Tan Wei is Chinese, but she doesn't look like she's from another country. She fits right in. Usually, it's not that organic. Let's say when you have like a foreigner inside the film of another country, usually you understand that this happens. But in this case, it's like she was Korean born from the beginning. So yeah, Grace, what do you think about her acting?
It was wonderful, I think. And I think multiple people have commented on this in other like publications, but she does have like a, so when you first see her on screen, it's like, oh, haha, she's like an immigrant, right? And it's like, she's not Korean. And I guess perhaps watching the film in Korea, that was like the first thing that came to my mind. But then the more you watch her and the more you see the way in which she interacts with the world, and then you see like the way she texts, which everything, her grammar is like totally perfect. And then you see the sorts of phrases that she starts to use. After a point, you're like, wait, she's like more eloquent than like your average Korean. And
even Detective Ho-jun says the same thing in the film, doesn't he? That your Korean is better than mine.
yeah, no, it really is. Like he looks like just a normal person. Like he looks like a normie compared to her. She looks like a philosopher, a poet, and it's really striking to see the two of them interact in this way, and to see the sort of linguistic differences between the two, and how Tongwei really like masters her role, right, of like being an immigrant, but also be like the language in a way that has stunned many Korean audiences, including myself.
Marco, about her acting?
I find it, I didn't manage to see all those like subtle differences. Okay, it's pretty much clearly hinted in the film by Park himself and in his script. But I don't find it so unusual, since I have been like for really long now an immigrant somewhere else. So it's like her fitting into the like environment. I don't find it that strange, but her acting overall, it's beautiful. It's like the embodiment of like I'm trying to find the right word.
Femme fatale, maybe.
Like she's so kind of fascinating and noble and graceful and in control of things. So it's like, it's really I could see someone falling hard for her.
I fully did. I totally did in this film. You know, I have loved her in some of her other films, but as beautiful as she has looked always, I think Park's camera in this one has just made her look something else entirely. Every time she smiled, it made me melt, man. You know, it's just even the little smiles while when she was speaking wrong Korean, or at least what she thought was wrong Korean. And she gives a smile in front of the camera, of the police camera. And yeah, I was like, that's me done. I'm head over heels here.
But it's not about individual acting. It's about interplay between them. I mean, like just the scene, the like kind of fancy sushi dinner scene at the police station at her first interrogation, and the way they are cleaning the table, the synchronicity between them, like they have barely met and they are already soulmates in a completely wordless performance.
Yeah,
It's like the masterwork of directing actors.
And I also think Park has a tendency for his female protagonists to have them function, for me, like they are kind of dolls sometimes. Like you can see, like, okay, in Handmaiden, she's the protagonist, like maybe a sex doll at times, the way he uses her.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. You have the title eludes me. The one where she thinks she's an android. Rhythm. You remember the title? Where
Yeah, I'm a cyborg, but that's okay.
I just
Yeah.
watched that yesterday. Yeah.
yeah. So the actress there is also like a kind of a robot doll, and this time I think she uses her like a doll as she's on a as a shop, let's say, that you look at her and admire her in that way. She's also kind of functions like a doll, but also it's not detached. You know, you empathize with her. It's not a doll that you just admire. You empathize with her, which is, I feel, very difficult. And also what Marko said, the way he directs his actors it's astonishing. I don't think Park Chan-wook is a good actor, but I don't think that he ever had such a good performance. Really?
Same. I absolutely agree with that. He's always good enough when he acts, but he's never left me with a wow sort of an aftertaste, except for this one, and that's for me a massive plus, a massive tick in Park Chan-wook's book, because not many directors have managed to do that with Park Chan-wook.
Okay. Grace, about the protagonist, Park Chan-wook?
I agree. I mean, I think usually he's always in he's also in detective roles, right? Like he was also in Memories of Murder. But he never really stood out to me before. And I think in this particular frame with Tongwei, I think he was incredible. I mean, not in the sort of, he's not like, so when I was watching this movie, I thought a lot about In the Mood for Love, just because of this idea of longing and desire, but he's no Tony Leung by any means. That charismatic. But I think he still I think he still performs really well, and perhaps it is what Marko is talking about. Like, I think Tongwei, for example, is a great actress in and of herself, but I think here, what Marko was saying about their chemistry, I think that's what really stood out to me more than Ake himself.
I really think, I do believe that both the actors, their performances together is what made both their performances a little bit better than they would have individually.
Marko, the protagonist?
Yeah. I mean, like, as we all agreed about the interplay thing, but they're all good individually, and all the performances are beautifully calibrated to some sorts. There is like a dash of nerdiness in the protagonist character, and especially in his wife, and there is a dash of dorkiness in both of his partners at work. Actually, they both serve as a bit of comic reliefs, but not really, not like completely. So it's like good writing and good directing contribute to superb acting in this one.
Okay, Grace, I guess this is like more specifically for you. There is this thing in the beginning with these lunch boxes, the difference in quality of the lunch boxes. Is that a thing in Korea? I didn't get it like fully. Is like known what you can get with more money? What's that all about?
Yeah, I mean, the lunch boxes that they order in the police station between Hakil and Tongwei, like, it's really expensive. I mean, the fact that they can order like full sashimi cuts with like high quality sashimi, that's just for like a regular lunch on the company dime. I don't know how much it would be, but it would be more than $50 at the very least. So that's a very extravagant.
Okay, all right. And let me ask you something else, because there's already talk about it since Darcy Packett did the subtitles on this one also. How is the subtitles? Is great, okay? What do you think?
Yeah, so the first time I watched it was without, and then the second time, and he did a wonderful job. I mean, there are some nuances that just can't translate over. Like, for example, Tang Wei's English, or her Korean, I guess. It's like difficult to translate that sort of inflection because it's not like she was grammatically wrong in any way or another. But I think in a similar way to Parasite, Darcy Paquette does a really good job of capturing the nuances of the language. And I think that really comes through whenever he translates some of, like, when Tang Wei cites Confucius, for example, I think it's really easy for people to get lost in the sauce, kind of like adopt all of this like heady language that doesn't really mean much in English, using words like, I don't know, like honor, beneficiary, or like, what are some other big Confucian words? Like things that just don't translate well or sound substantial in English. But I think each time Tang Wei says something that is somewhat philosophical, Darcy Paquette was really good at grounding it in layman terms, but still adding its poetic flair. So I thought that was really well done.
Is that dialogue near the end where she talks about his love ending and her love beginning? Is that an accurate translation, like word for word, or is that also something that's been where he's caught the essence of it and turned it into his own word?
No, yeah, that is like an accurate representation of what they were saying. And I think even in the title, Decision to Leave. So when you say like, how would you got, it's like, oh, should I break up with you? And I think the fact that he chose to leave rather than to break up really adds to the mystery of the film. And then it puts a question like, oh, who's leaving who? Like, or who is leaving what? Right? Rather than who is breaking up with who is breaking up.
Yeah, I remember when the project was originally announced, people were calling it Decision to Break Up. So I suppose it's like a literal translation of the Korean title.
Yeah.
Well, related to this topic, I saw the film for the first time at Carlo Vivari, and it was like deliberately put by the end of the festival. So it was my last screening of the festival, Decision to Leave, and probably well, the best film at the festival, which featured some of best films at my list this year. So it was like really a sort of a perfect storm for me, like to end it, and to end it in that way, in a beautiful cinema, which is a rare thing in Carlo Vivari, because for most of the screenings are set in like Congress halls at the hotel, but this one was like wow, it was simply perfect.
Okay. Well, I guess also another great trait of the movie is the cinematography. I feel it's one of the few films this year that they managed to do something different. Although, okay, you have like, I don't know, you have panoramic shots. I think he uses whatever technique there is in the book. You have panning shots, and for me, it's I think he also uses this Hong Sang-soo technique with the sudden, instead of zoom ins, he does zoom outs mostly, but there is some Hong Sang-soo technique there, right? Rhythm?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I rewatched it just today, in fact, earlier, and I was like, a few number of times I was like, that is definitely trademark Hong Sang-soo. This is for sure something that he would do. A few times where he zooms in into Tang Wei, and then with Park Hale as well. And at the outside of Hong Sang-soo as well, when they're climbing the mountain, the two police officers with the other one at the back, and the horizontal shot that he does, that was also something that I really liked. It's just especially the outdoor sequences are just fantastically shot right throughout the film. When we get to the end as well, the aerial shot of the sea on both sides and the road going between it, that is just such a masterful shot.
Grace, cinematography?
It's funny. I remember when I walked out of the theater the second time, everyone around me was talking about Rear Window. And I mean, I brought this up earlier as well. But I think that I think it's really interesting, and I'm curious to hear what all of you guys have to say about this. I've been noticing recently in a lot of independent productions and smaller budget productions, people are trying to become more like Park Chan-wook or like Wes Anderson-esque, in that they're trying to make this sort of stylized, trying to stylize the camera shots, trying to stylize themselves. But in the end, it always ends up looking a lot more cringe than it does. And I don't know what it is about Park Chan-wook's film, like how it feels so natural, yet it feels so him at the same time. And I'm curious to hear what everyone else has to say about like why it doesn't look so cringe whenever he cuts his movies or shoots his films in the way that he does.
I think that despite the result and how serious he takes his movies, he also manages to make fun of himself sometimes. I think that is the point. I think essentially he mocks himself. He's ironic about the way he shoots or whatever. There is this sense of ironic humor throughout the movie. Like, it's the scene that Rhythm mentioned, the one where the two cops are climbing on the mountain, which you think that what does this scene do here? You have a murder and a drama, and you laugh at that scene. But it's so organically embedded that it works. And I think that is the thing, that he manages to have humor about himself and what he's doing, which is very rare for auteurs, let's say, who usually take themselves very seriously. I don't know. Marko, what do you think? Cinematography in general?
In general, I think it's well thought through with okay, some things are referential, some things are but generally it all makes sense because it's kind of planned this way.
Okay. And
I do kind of agree with where Grace is going with this one, but I think is where the other films really fail, and where Park Chan-wook, for example, don't, is because the other films, what they try to do is, when they're doing something stylistic with the cinematography, they want that to be the center of attention and the absolute focus point of that particular scene. And at that point, the acting, the story, everything goes for a toss. Whereas with Park Chan-wook's film, I believe, as beautiful as they look, that is not his prime concern with where he wants to take his film. His main focus is on the story and his actors, and whatever is happening in the background can happen itself. Whatever lighting does it, if it looks beautiful, fantastic. If not, then that's okay. He would be someone who would who wants his story to be the center of attention, and maybe that's why you don't, because there's a lot going on in the scenes apart from the cinematography, which kind of draws your attention to its beauty, but it also doesn't let you lose focus from like the grander scale of things.
Grace, you have an answer to your own question?
Yeah, I think Rhythm really touched on something important here, which I think maybe should have been brought up earlier on the conversation about dolls. But I feel like in Decision to Leave, so much of the cinematography is in conjunction with the choreography of the actors. And I was really impressed with was not just like their chemistry, but like how they were blocked in each scene.
Mm.
And the way in which Tangwei would be placed right behind a Park in like the kitchen, for example, and then you would see like a slight turn at like these sorts of small details of where they were placed in relation to each other. I think really maximized, I guess, this feeling of longing, but also this epitomized like what they were going through within their relationship. So yeah, I guess in relation to that, part of the cinematography was just capturing that choreography.
Mhm. And I think that goes back to what Marco said before, the synchronicity between the two actors is like astonishing. It's like he has choreographed their every interaction, let's say, which I feel is very difficult. I think at some point it would be interesting to have an interview with him and the actors and ask them how, if he allows any kind of improvisation or if every movement is choreographed. I think probably it looks like every movement is choreographed, like nothing gets out of measure, let's say. Yeah. And
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I'd say as well.
And also for me, even better than the cinematography is the editing. I don't know what happened. There is sudden cuts to something else that you don't know what is happening, but in a few minutes it makes sense. This is astonishing work in terms of editing. I don't know what you think, Real.
The transitions, man, the transitions were immaculate in this one. You've got a hand, an X-ray of a hand, which just then moves to Park Hale's own hand. You've got a light, the coil in the light bulb, which then moves to something else. And Park Hale in one scene is looking through the binoculars, and then the very next moment he's in the room, and you're like, okay, hang on a minute. You want to be able to what just happened, and then immediately starts making sense, and you're like, whoa, that is something that we have not seen in Park Chan-wook's editing before.
Marco?
Well, it's not just we haven't seen it in his editing, but we usually see that kind of tricks, like projections, like sudden projections of people like who do not belong to the scene into the scene. We usually see it as a cheap trick in like some cheap movies. It's like a shtick of, like slashers and stuff like that, and like really modestly budgeted thriller serial killer flicks, whatever, that just have to play with our imagination in that way with modest means and modest craft levels. So they do something that atrocious, I mean, like that strange and outlandish. But here it's like it's almost like music video level of cool, like and I mean, at least I immediately knew that it was a trick of sorts, that it cannot happen, and it's not like doing for the purpose of like fast forwarding the time, but for something else. But here it simply works when he appears in her room while she is like eating ice cream and watching dramas to fall asleep, or when she, the victim, and a couple of detectives all show up at the same mountain peak at the same time at the revelation point. Wow, it's like really it's really trippy. Yeah.
Grace?
Yeah, I keep thinking back to the scene that you brought up, Panos, when they're going up the mountain and just like it's cutting between like what happened before with like the guy recording himself on the GoPro, and then of seeing the two of them trying to go up the mountain in their own way. And I think so much of what the editing is so good at doing is like helping us think about not just seeing, but also imagining, right? Like seeing into the future, seeing into the past, and seeing each other. And are we actually seeing each other? And I think that, in addition to like the motif of like Akeu putting eye drops in his eyes every now and then, or this motif of like mist in this like fog covered town of Ipoh, I think so much of the editing is complementary to the narrative's themes of not being able to see everything super clearly, but still, or like the lack of transparency, but also knowing that there is something out there. And I think because it had like the sort of motif to go, or the sort of theme to go along with it, maybe that's why it felt more poignant in this particular film than others.
And it's also this sense that sometimes these abrupt cuts, let's say, the one that, let's say, that Marko described, you know that what you're seeing in screen is not real, like having the detective inside her house, you realize that this is not happening. But at the same time, the same kind of editing sometimes is actually progresses the story, is part of the narrative. So this is also very interesting for me, that with the same thing, the same approach in editing, he manages present different things. I don't know. Yeah, it's like, I don't know, I think in editing, this is a masterclass in editing for me. It's like someone should really teach what they did there. Yeah. And okay, I think we've analyzed enough. So let's finish with 2 yes or no questions. So Rhythm, does he die in the end?
Does he die in the end?
She.
She does. She. I think she does. Yes. Yeah.
Grace?
Yeah, no, definitely.
Definitely. Marko?
Yeah.
No sequel there, I guess.
I'm pretty much convinced when someone digs themselves into the sand before the tide. Yeah.
Okay.
I also want to, since we are talking about that scene, I also
Yeah.
want to mention the cinematography of that. You know, where she's dug the sand out, and there's a little hill of sand there, and at the back of where you see the setting sun and the sea, and because there's a lot of talks about mountains and the seas and in the film, and to see both of them together, and for the sea to eventually get the mountain, well, the hill of sand to fall down and until ultimately cause her death. I think that's so poetic and so beautifully done.
Okay. Well, I guess I came up with another question now. So, okay, it's obvious that he is head over heels with her from the beginning. That's more than obvious. But what about her? At some point in the end, she mentions that she started loving him after he didn't, or something like that. But do you think she did, Grace?
I do.
Oh, sorry,
I do
really?
believe. I do believe she did. Because whatever she does after, just to be near him, it's not out of a spite or wanting to test him again with the second murder or anything of that sort. I genuinely think it was because of the feelings that she had for him.
Grace?
Yeah, it takes a lot to murder someone or to murder people without having some sort of feelings or another. So I'm a yes.
Yeah. Marko?
Well, I think she loves him from the start, but maybe in a different way. Maybe she sees him as her ticket out, not just get out of jail free ticket, but as a ticket out from well, actually, she might imagine him as her ideal husband, because her first husband, he was abusive, but he was a ticket out of China, where she is going to be accused for murder for euthanasia of her mother. The second husband is kind of ticket out of not exactly poverty, but like confinement in a way. And he comes only after the illusion of a relationship she has with her ideal husband, with the detective, is broken. I don't know. I think she sees something in him, and that she's far more tolerant towards him than his own wife is. So I think, yeah, and like the sacrifice as the ultimate demonstration of love. Yeah, why not love?
Okay. And I guess last question, the one that Reed mentioned before. So Bong Joon-ho or Park Chan-wook?
Now I can very confidently say Park Chan-wook. I was very much over the fence up until now, just because I liked all the films that they've done so far. But I think what Park Chan-wook does with this massive shift in genres, while still having his signature stamp all over it, and doing it so effortlessly, so brilliantly, getting the sort of performances that he did out of his actors, and just doing something that was like, up until now, we've seen all Park Chan-wook films have, like, well, most of them have a lot of nudity in it, a lot of violence in it, and this one doesn't, and it still manages to be just as impactful as, like, the scene of Tang Wei applying lip balm to Park Hae-il's lips twice. They have the same sort of effect that something like the lesbian sex scenes in The Handmaiden have. They both completely different scenes, but they have to the audience, they have the same impact, or at least that's how I felt. So that is just incredible in my eyes. I don't think any other director can go this way. Between the two, at least, between Park Chan-wook and Bong Joon-ho, I don't think Bong Joon-ho, even if he can, then I'd be gladly proven wrong. But for now, I absolutely and very easily can say that it is Park Chan-wook for me.
Grace?
Chan-wook, hands down.
Okay.
This way even before Decision to. I feel this way even more strongly now. I think he has more range, and I think that the level of complete mastery that we see in his films, it's almost like, and this might be a weird comparison, it's almost like Charlie Chaplin. Like, everything is so perfect to the T. And I think it's very rare to find a filmmaker like that.
Marko?
Well, for me, it actually depends on the mood.
What about weekends then?
Let's say that craft wise and like technique wise, Park is a bit more consistent. But he's not that prone to like to miss the mark. He did it with Stoker. I mean, like with his American film, he missed the mark quite by quite a big margin. But I mean, like I think this world is big enough for more than 2, 3, 5, 10 Korean or like filmmakers from wherever. So well,
you have to give an answer, man. One name out of the two. Don't be political.
I mean, like this year, I would go for Park, and I'm waiting for Bond to surprise me again,
Yeah, yeah.
or like
Mm,
or
mm.
someone else. I mean,
Yeah, we have Lee Chang-dong also. We are waiting for his next movie. So let's.
yeah, I mean, if it would be near as good as Burning.
Yeah, yeah.
Park
For
And Na Hong Jin as well, you know.
Yeah,
That guy.
actually, I have a conspiracy theory. I really think Bong Joon-ho and Park Chan-wook are in a competition with each other, and every year they try to to do better than each other. Like with Parasite, you would say like Bong Joon-ho is the best director. Right now, you say Park Chan-wook is the best. We will say in the next film you'll probably change again. So this is definitely happening. There, I think that this is a healthy competition. Who's going to get the next masterpiece or something? So. Yeah, we'd like you to live in this era. I really think we are
If
like.
the output is this good, then I think the only winner is us as the audience. You know, they can fight it out all they want, but just keep turning up like this.
Do you remember an old cigarette commercial with Formula One drivers?
The Marlboro one, was it?
No, it's West
Uh-huh.
cigarette and McLaren drivers. At that time, Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton, like constantly competing among themselves and like outdoing one another, until Mika Hakkinen shows up, like in sauna and puts more water over the rocks. Like kids, you have no idea.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
So I don't know who would be Mika Hakkinen in this in this analogy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I guess that's it. This was Asian Movie Pals Talks. I think we have too much fun this time. Okay, so I guess see you all next time and have a nice night. From Panos, Rhythm, Grace, and Marko. Bye.
Bye.
Holiday.